Hello, and welcome to episode 74 of Flesh and Pod. I am your not very awake host, Logan, and with me, as always, is the almost rearmed Darick Oswald. Charmer, fuck it. There is no point in asking what we got up to in Flesh and Blood because it's literally the entire show.
No, I mean, you should ask me because...
Fine. Charmer?
Yeah.
What did you get up to in Flesh and Blood this week?
Not much, if I'm being entirely honest. I tried to play a bit, and then I tapped out because of the pain. So very little. Nothing exciting. In fact, I don't even think we should be talking about Flesh and Blood this week. This should just be
about your Battle Spirits unboxing? Is that what you want to talk about?
Yeah, a different podcast. There was nothing that happened in Flesh and Blood this weekend whatsoever.
So that seems
just kidding.
Erroneous at best. There was this was a very full week in Flesh and Blood, if I may say so, because we both just got back today from Pro Tour Baltimore, where neither of us participated in the Pro Tour. We both attempted the calling, and neither of us were successful. Darick due to pain, me due to Kano, which is the same thing.
Yeah, both pain.
They're both pain. However, it was a absolute fucking delight. The entire time. I mean, outside of seeing my good friend grimacing in pain every 10 to 30 seconds, that was not the best.
Yeah,
but I'm glad
you're in pain, but
I
smiling through it.
Yeah. Well, you do that. Usually, it's just the mental pain. Now
usually it's just the mental pain, but now it's the physical too. But yeah, it was an absolutely wonderful weekend for sure.
It was a fucking delight
from so many angles. Like it's actually rather impressive how well this weekend went top to bottom, despite me being in pain the whole weekend, despite my good friends getting robbed, despite
forgot about that one.
A number of mishaps. Another good friend only finished second, right, in the Pro Tour. So
perish the thought.
You could say like, oh, you didn't quite get there, but honestly, like I'm so proud of her and she did such a fantastic job. But yeah, so all of that is, beside the point, or just not at all touching the fact that the event, again, top to bottom, from the Pro Tour to the calling to the side events, the cosplay contest, and then there was a bunch of other shenanigans and chicanery in between. It was just a great weekend overall.
So yeah, diving into a little bit of that, so obviously there was the event, there's the tournament, there's the 3 tournaments, really, the Pro Tour, the calling, and the Battle Hardened, plus all the side events, everything else that was happening. The presence, I should say omnipresence, really, of LSS in the building. That's something that gets overlooked sometimes, that I just want to make sure we touch on, is that if you go to you go to your other large events, a lot of the times you don't have, Magic's a good example. You don't have what is effectively the entirety of Wizards of the Coast staff at an event, including, the creator of the games and the head of everything standing right there. And for these events, you have literally the person that created the game, the person that writes the rules, the people that organize play, the person that is the head of content. They're all right there. 100% accessible the entire time. Well, not 100%, but accessible the entire time to talk to people and get feedback. It is such... I know I give LSS a lot of shit sometimes, mainly because, and there's been some correction, I will say, to feeling like we were the redheaded stepchildren of content creators. However, I don't think that's the case, largely anymore, at least, due to some conversations. And I have promos to give out now, So we'll figure out how to do that at some point in time. I've given zero thought, zero, as to how I want to do that yet, because I didn't know we were getting them until they were handed to me yesterday. Oops. But thank you, LSS, for giving us the opportunity to reward our listeners and reward the good people of this game. I also shout out to a lot of the different people. I mean, God, I met so many people that I've interacted with on Twitter, or I've interacted with in Discord, or that just were listeners that don't really say much all weekend long. The first thing that happened when I walked into on Friday morning, when I walked into the event hall, is this very tall man, not Timmy tall, but tall, walked up and he was, "Are you Logan?" And in a pretty, in an accent, I was like, "Yes." It's like, "From Flesh and Pod?" Like, "Yes." "Hello, I love your show." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I mean, where are you from?" He's like, "I'm from Germany." And I'm like, "Fucking fantastic." you know? And that happened at least once a day. But in most of the time, it was way more than once a day. And that was just incredible. And I loved it. The community aspect of it is always just, it ambushes me, man. Like it's not that I forget how great it is. It's more about it's impossible to take for granted how great it is. And so it's just overwhelming every time. So shout out to everybody out there in the community. You made the event. You made it great. Everybody was very cool, except for the fucker who stole the cash bag from the Realm booth. That fucking guy whoever it is, because we have camera footage and I didn't recognize him. That one,
I don't honestly think he's part of the Fab community. I
don't legitimately
think it was somebody who knew there was something going on in the convention center. They were wandering around at wrap up time and saw them place the cash, waited for them to walk away from their booth, and then did, the grab and dash. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like, I don't recognize him from any of the events that I've been to. And while I don't claim to have been to every Flesh and Blood event, I've been to a lot at this point, and it's, it's a growing community, sure, but like, it's one of those things where like you see a lot of the same people, and that was just somebody that did not look familiar, kind of didn't really look the part either, if I'm being honest, as far as like what you expect from people there for the actual event. So it's unfortunate though, and I really felt for Jacob and the Realm guys, but I want to like second the community thing, and I want to give like this is semi long list, but like I want to give like a quick round of hellos and shout outs. Half these people probably don't even listen to this show, but first I want to just start with Alex. Alex from LSS. I fell in love with him when we met him in Columbus, and he's a wonderful guy, but I need to give credit where credit is due. That man was a madman for this event.
Entire time.
All over the convention center. He got so much footage. He was on top of all of the big things that were happening, the cosplay contest, the pro tour. Every time that there was anything going on, he was there. And while doing all of that, he also took time out to grace Logan and I with some very generous gifts. And he chatted with us and like spent, quality time. And on top of that, if you have not seen the like live blog that they were doing for this event, where they were chronicling all of the big things for the tournament, and they were updating it basically live all weekend long. It is an amazing like time capsule for this event. There's a lot of card games that I have covered that just don't have this kind of history available. And in fact, this is something that's going on in the Legends of Runeterra community quite a bit right now. A lot of the long timers are trying to look up historical tournament placements and deck lists that people used, and all of that stuff is very hard to find because nobody was recording it. And what Alex, helped keep track of for this event is outstanding. I absolutely love it. Beyond, Alex from LSS, as Logan said, several folks all weekend long walked up to me. I loved everybody who said, "Hey, Tannen," um, so I appreciate you. I appreciate, people like Eldoris from the Discord who said hello. I appreciated some of the new folks that I got to meet, like Rose, who was on the Pummel Icelander, and just hearing about that was fantastic. But then also, weirdly, so even though I got called Tannen a bunch, and I love the joke, and even though even Logan himself called me Flake twice in one day, not like ironic,
Unironically.
like, oh hey, you're Flake. Oh, I mean Darick, sorry. I
To be
had
fair, Flake was to my left both
Yeah,
times.
Flake was to the left, and again, we're very easy to mix up. But despite all that, I had 3 people like unironically approach me and recognize me for me. I mean, I met a lot of people from the Legends of Runeterra community that I hadn't met in person before. So like Alan, who's former world champion, was there. He came all the way from Poland. It was great to finally meet him, and some of the other European LOR players. I finally got to meet another friend, caster from Runeterra, Jay Doza, in person. We'd done remote broadcasts together during the pandemic, but I'd never met him in person, and he was there, so I got to chat with him. That was wonderful. All of that. But I had 3 people approach me, and they were like, "Hey, are you Charmer?" And then they recognized me from like Legends of Runeterra. 2 of them. One of them said I was the reason they started playing Flesh and Blood, and that they finished very well in the calling and in the money. Like they were like, "Hey, this is the first event I've ever cashed, and I only started playing this game because you had tweeted about it." And I was like, "What's Flesh and Blood?" And I checked it out and fell in love. And now they're like really into being competitive for the game, and stuff like that is just really heartwarming, because I think a lot of times you kind of throw things out into the universe, and you don't necessarily get the reminders of the impact it has on people. And then the other one that I wanted to give a shout out to, especially because they also had a fantastic performance, Andrew Rothermel, who finished in the top 4 of the Pro Tour, also after the event said, "Oh, hey, you're Charmer, right? I remember you from Artifact." And then we're talking about how much we loved that game and how much we loved the We Play broadcasts and how spirited and fun they were. And it was just amazing that, a guy who's just, oh, by the way, I just top 4'd the Pro Tour, but remembered me from a dead game from 5 years ago. It was just very heartwarming. So everybody all weekend long was kind and generous, and I got a lot of well wishes about the arm, because I was in a lot of pain and it was very apparent. So yeah, the community's just outstanding. Like all of the what I will call normal offenders, repeat offenders, were also amazing. Flake and Armada and Brennan and Tannen, the broadcast team that granted I'm not on the Pro Tour broadcast this time, but they're people I've worked with, and again I'm going to work with some of those guys here in Pittsburgh in a month. They were all great in between the rounds. We had a wonderful time afterwards. People like Mara that were doing well and competing, and Brody and all of those people, they're still wonderful. But it was just, this one was also a very interesting one for me. And I told Logan this because normally when I go to these, I'm either casting, so I get short breaks and I have to have micro conversations, or I'm playing, and so I can only talk in between rounds. And this time, because of the injury and the pain, I kind of just got to talk to a bunch of people. And while it felt weird, it was rather nice. Like I just felt like I had a lot of really good human to human interactions and connections this time.
Yeah, I want to add to your list a little bit here. So one, the ability for me to be loud enough to summon Alex from LSS out of thin air is still alive and well. As we were at the Hyatt bar, and 3 floors away, Alex heard me and came down to the bar and
Yep.
hung out. So that was always great. Josh Scott is quite possibly the funniest man that I didn't know was ultra funny and an absolute joy to hang out with.
Yeah.
That guy is
Good Burger King stories too.
McDonald's. It
Oh,
was
sorry.
McDonald's
Yeah, it
because
was a big Mac.
and what a big Mick, and will you marry me? And I was just like, what the fuck, man? That was beautiful. So if you ever encounter Josh Scott in a spot where you can talk to him for like 5 minutes and he has the time to do it, just ask him about the Burger King marriage or the McDonald's marriage proposal. See, I did it there.
Yeah.
McDonald's marriage proposal, and you'll get one of the funniest fucking stories you'll ever hear. It was unreal. I just I my heart and mind exploded at the same time. It was absolutely wonderful. I want to also thank, usual suspects. You brought up most of them, but also our good friend Tommy Fresh for being
Oh
the
yeah.
donger, just being the best. Our buddy Mikey, aka Nick Bolas, aka No Control, aka Nice Neon Shorts douchebag, aka what am I
Flexi
missing? Oh,
Lexi.
Lexi, yeah. He was great all weekend, just hanging out and vibing
My
with us.
favorite. You left off my favorite. Buttcock.
Buttcock, yes, aka Buttcock. He was
BUTC.
great.
For those wondering.
Yeah, Stonks Elemental Andy, always
Yeah.
just having a good time there too. Just hung out a bit, and that was fun as hell. There was we had a lot of that going on. Clark, I finally met Clark J.
Yeah,
that
Clark.
guy is unreal fun. Popo Mike, I still owe you a drink, buddy, but make sure you cash that in. Aiden and Sam from Three Floating were just being fucking goofballs as per normal, and that's the best. I love those two just deeply and dearly. Most of these people don't even listen to this fucking show.
Yeah,
But
I know. I mean, that was just it. Like, I wanted to like just make sure I said it in case anyone ever actually does listen. But yeah, there was just so many people who I know probably don't listen to the show, but it was just so nice meeting them. And yeah, like the list does keep going. Like the more it's so funny. Like the more names you say, the more I'm like, oh yeah. And there was also, and I remember somebody else, right? Like Bryn. I got to meet Bryn for the first time. She was wonderful, and there were. There were some fun moments with like Anthony and Carolina waiting in line to get the artist signatures, and obviously Pete and Sam from MinMax, and they were wonderful as always as well. It was
Hemel
again,
of Magnolia,
yep.
then you have then the Realm obviously, and then the rest of the Ohio crew with C-Dubs and May and the Levies, and just that continued crew of people that are just again all great to hang out with when you get a chance.
I want to say, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, this is just like a never-ending barrage of names, I want you to understand that this was also a massive event. The calling had over 900 people. So yes, we just, it felt like met everybody. That's why it was so hard to like really quantify how this weekend really went and felt, because I talked to so many people that I'm having a hard time remembering it all. And like I said, that just normally doesn't happen for me at these events. Like I obviously have a lot of fun at them and I talk to people. It's just, I can't remember the last time I was barraged with so many positive social interactions.
Yeah, it was a lot to keep up with. Honestly, I spent a lot of time around Syndra. If you're listening, you would be a new listener. Like, she was amazed that because we were having discussion at dinner, and was bringing up that I was going to tell some of these stories or whatever, and be a complete fucking idiot on on the show, because it's what I do. And she was like, "Oh, so when's that come out?" I'm like, "Tuesday." And she was like, "Oh, it's like a couple weeks or next week." I'm like, "No, Tuesday." She's like, "You're just gonna go record and release an episode in like 2 days?" I'm like,
Yep.
"Yes, that's what we do." And Mara's reaction was like, "Yeah, these guys don't fucking miss. They just keep going." And it's like, "Yeah, that's what we do. Like, we don't miss. Like 74 straight weeks, have not had a miss." So that's that. It's hard to quantify. It's impossible. Like, not hard. It's impossible to quantify how great, supportive, amazing, fun this community really is. And when they just kind of rally to points, which in this case the point was Baltimore, it really does shine a light on everything. So the Iowa crew, the Michigan crew, they were all out there. I mean, it's funny with Andrew, like he came with you to talk to Artifact. I was talking to Andrew and congratulating him because I know him from he's a Minnesota player.
Right.
I played against him several times, And he then he's like, and you're Charmer. And I'm like, Andrew doesn't listen to my show. And then he's like, I know you from Artifact. I'm like, the fuck?
Yeah.
How is that
There
a
are
thing?
dozens of us.
Yeah, you are Legion. Yes. I was like, what the fuck is happening? And Pat Shaw, Jesus Christ, we fucking played. We drafted with Pat, and I can't forget that we had him. At close quarters. I signed probably 10 playmats. That people was like, here, can you sign this for me?
Yeah. I forgot about
Sure.
that. I signed playmats with my busted up arm even, and
You
I signed
did.
Carolina's Winter's Whale.
Just the tip. Just the tip.
Yep.
We weren't allowed to sign the bonk. Just the tip. She doesn't listen to the show, so we can talk shit about Carolina all we want to. It's actually totally fine.
Honestly, the tip is a lot of really good company, though, because we also are in the presence of Joe Biden Femboy
Burger. Joe Biden, Kanye West Femboy Burger, who that sounds like a meme because it is. And they are the Levia player, Levia, whatever, player that was that 4-0'd Swiss on day one of the Pro Tour, playing on the crumpled up plastic dual deck playmat and keeping their life total in crayon. So that person's a legend. That's it. They are legend.
Yeah.
And also just totally fun. I mean, just a good time.
Since you said she doesn't listen to the show, I want to tell you that when he walked up to Carolina, because somebody had said to Carolina that they knew him, right? And so she's like, I want him to sign my whale. Go find your friend and tell him, right? So then, I don't know, 10 minutes go by. Object permanence is a thing. So he walks up, and he's a very, very fun guy, but he's kind of a bit shy and awkward, right? He's a little,
sure,
a little mumbly, whatever. So he walks up, and he's like standing by Carolina, looking at her, and she's like, oh, do you want, I think she wanted like maybe, or thought he wanted to like take a picture or whatever. She's like, oh, do you want something? Are you here for the promos? Because she was also handing out the promos. And he kind of like mumbles it, but he's like, no, like my friend said you wanted me to come sign your hammer. And she just looks dumbfounded, like she'd forgot, and she doesn't recognize him. So she's just like, I mean, I do want people to sign my hammer. I guess here you go. And so it wasn't until, so like they walk over to this table, and again, like she's not registering him. It's so funny to me because it was so awkward. And so finally, the only reason she recognizes him, because when he went to sign stuff, he had to put stuff down, and his playmat, the paper playmat that he'd been using, popped out. And then she was like, oh, like screamed it. Like it was so loud, like it finally dawned on her. And it was just like watching like one of those train wrecks in real time.
there was a couple of those, and I know that we're gonna rip this Band-Aid off right now. So Ashley, if you're listening, last time I'm telling the story, but I'm telling it for the entire listener base, is we were sitting, Ashley Arafel on Twitter, if you want to go and tag her for this story. We were sitting at a table, and Mara walks up. She's 5'1", and so she's like, I'm like, you still going, girl? And she's like, I'm fucking 5'1". And Ashley goes, that's fucking awesome. I want all the gays to win. I want all the straights to fucking get wrecked. And at this point in time, my head is down, and I am crying in laughter. I am chortling as hard as possible because I kind of lost my voice a little bit from all the laughing I did this weekend. And this was probably culprit number one. As Mara just kind of looks at her and goes, I'm very straight. I've been in a committed relationship with a man for like 14 years. And then watching all the color drain out of Ashley's face, I was dying. And then Ash just kind of like mumbles, oh, well, I mean, I hope you do well too then. So from now on, it is gay icon, Mara Ferris, we will get into Mara here shortly. She's going to get some run in the show, much to my chagrin, just because she's going to be fucking insufferable for the next at least 6 months, but she kind of deserves it, so fine. However, let's get into the actual event a little bit. because we are now 25 minutes into the show and we've discussed zero about the actual play. So the Pro Tour was a metric fuck ton of Lexis and a similar but not quite as large fuck ton of Oldhams. And then that's kind of where the spread started to break down a little bit as far as the hero breakdown went. But there was it 91 or 92 Lexis
Yeah, I mean, she
in the Pro
was.
Tour by and large. I think the next closest is Oldham at 74.
Yeah, I was gonna say she was like far and away the lead.
Yep.
I was actually surprised by the amount of Oldham. Not because I'm down on the hero or anything. I think he's incredibly strong. I just didn't think that many people would pick him up for the event. So,
Yeah.
and you know, again, like we're gonna get to the results, but I think that it also just kind of shows that I think that those numbers are a bit skewed because I think people picked it up for this event because there were a lot of Oldhams, but the conversion rate was a little bit less for the old man than I would have expected. Though the one that mattered was, of course, Michael Feng, and
right.
it turns out that's pretty good. But
that's okay if you're Michael Feng, I guess. But the it was interesting. You were right. Like the Azalea share went just into the shitter, and they all just flipped. Like almost all of them flipped to Lexi. And I think a lot of that was because of Lexi being a bit better into Oldham. That's my take on it. Although,
yeah, it was a bit of that. There was also, just from talking to a lot of players and a lot of testing teams, the other one that I think tipped it was a lot of the Lexi players felt like they had good matchups into Dromai as well. Now, Mara had an amazing time against Lexi. So I don't know that it's necessarily like telling of the matchup as a whole, or maybe that just speaks to like a skill thing, because Mara just beat Lexi's all day long. But I do know that the general consensus from teams and again, players that I was talking to in between rounds is they were saying like, yeah, Lexi, you know, they would either outright say like, we went with her because she has a better matchup, or there were a few teams that were like, hey, we cracked the matchup. We just don't lose to Dromai anymore. Obviously, that's the not the truth 100%, right. But like clearly, I think that was what pushed him over the edge, was that ultimately they felt like Lexi had a good matchup into Oldham, but also had a good one into Dromai, and Dromai's had a lot of representation lately in the previous events. So if that was a matchup you were worried about, it makes sense that we saw the spike.
Yeah, and like let's be fair, there's beating Dromai, and then there's beating Mara playing Dromai. They're not the same.
Right.
So
it's like beating Icelander versus like beating Michael Hamilton on Icelander, you know?
Okay, let's not. I'm good with giving her ego a little bit of a shove northward, but then calling her the Michael Hamilton of Dromai. We're just going to not do that because we're going to stretch that 6 months of insufferable into a fucking year.
Listen,
at that point,
I know that I'm opening a can of worms here, but you know, multiple top eights in, what was it, Charlotte, and then now a finals,
2 Battle Hardens, a PTI event, and now this.
Yeah, so that's Hamilton like in terms of its consistency as far as a Dromai player goes. So
it's starting to get that way, but we're not there yet. Calm down. Yeah. But mainly because you're probably right. It's probably accurate, but I don't want to hear about that. Come on. We already had to hear about. We already had to eat shit because neither of us picked Dromai in the top 8 at all, and there were 2.
Yeah.
So top eight was pretty. I found it to be fascinating. A lot of people were kind of like, well, I mean, it wasn't a lot of diversity and representation, and they're right. I mean, it wasn't, right. Like it was. You had
5
4
Rangers.
Lexis, 4 Lexis and an Azalea, so 5 Rangers, 2 Dromai, and an Oldham.
And Michael Feng.
and Michael Feng. And so we'll go ahead. Like, let's just get over this really quick. It was obviously Michael Feng on Oldham. We talked about that. Jake Warburton on Azalea. And then you had Andrew Rothermill, Maximilian Klein, Matthew Folks, and Brody Spurlock all on Lexi.
Yep.
And then you had Mara and If I fucked this up, I do apologize, but it's Juha Sarnalampi, I believe. But I'm not very good at that one yet. I'll work on it.
That
You're a
name
caster, you
is
tell me.
listen, that name isn't even the issue. The issue is that the game that Juha played against Michael Fang was the Lord of the Rings extended edition of Flesh and Blood, over 2 hours.
Over 2 hours. Marathon
in the
game.
top 4. Just what a brutal heavyweight fight back and forth.
Yeah, there was a spot in there where, so in the quarters, there was a spot in there where it looked like Fang was done. Because
he thought he was. So I
he
overheard
had
him
lost his
talking.
rampart.
Yeah, I overheard him talking to one of his teammates after the entire event was over. So we're talking even after the finals, but he was saying that there was a part where he thought he was done. He thought he was dead, and he was going through the motions essentially, and then he started to see an opening and then just ground it out. But like, he expressed the exact same sentiment. I heard him say the words out loud, like, I thought I was dead. So
yeah, so he narrowly escapes the quarters in what was a long and very taxing match, to then turn around and play a 2 hour and 15-minute slugfest with a big dragon Dromai. And just to come through one match where you, honest to God, thought it was over, like that you did not have a shot, and then to go from there to a 2 hour and 15-minute match that you have to, like, it's pure grind, and win that, and then turn around and just do it and still have it in you for one more. And he's Michael Fang. The nickname is now the Sure Thing, Michael Fang. So we have the Angel of Death, which is Michael Hamilton. We have the Sure Thing and Michael Fang. We have the Empress of Volcor and Mara Ferris. We're getting some names out there.
yeah.
Wonder Kid, Brody Spurlock. And it turns out that the number of living legend points the name Michael has is very high. We might be LLing out Michael soon.
Yeah.
So that'd be good, because then some of us might have a chance at winning something. But no, to all these competitors, it was unreal to watch. A lot of high level gameplay. There were mistakes made in the top 8 that were, often backbreaking, and that's just to remind us that they're still human, right? And this game is still very young, and there's like,
but
a
also,
lot of this is
this was day 3, right? Like, by the time you got to
right.
the top 8, they had been playing so much for so long against some of the best competition in the world. And then I think one of the things that you don't necessarily realize is that the mental component gets a little bit stretched when you get to the top 8 as well, because depending on like when your match is scheduled, because they broadcast them all, you might have like a big break before when you start playing in like your next round and things like that. So there's another component, like Mara, for example. She was the last one of, the first round of the
quarters,
top 8.
yeah.
So like, she shows up to the convention center and then has to spend all morning long, answering questions, because everyone will see her walking around. They're like, oh, how'd it go? How are you doing? And she's like, yeah, I don't start for like 3 more hours. And so there's, a completely different mental component once you get to that top 8, because there's that weird like limbo that you're in.
Yep.
So, imagine it's like showing up to the football stadium, 3 hours early, and then just like hanging out.
Yeah, no,
waiting for your game.
This is also one of those, and I want to point this out because I think this is not only interesting, this actually speaks to how good the system can be. Mara did not qualify for this Pro Tour. She purchased, or she was gifted, I guess, however you want to put it, a PTI that she redeemed. And she did that based on the confidence that she had of the deck, how much time she's put into it, and how narrow misses of having the PTI. And she bet on herself. And that bet got her PTI back, a gold foil Phantasmal Footsteps, which how fucking fitting, and also $20,000. Good bet. I mean, it's a real good bet. So I think that in that case the system works. Like that was one of my takeaways was, okay, like that's somebody who didn't qualify traditionally, narrow misses, obviously deserve to be there. And I don't think there's a single person that would have argued that Mara didn't deserve to be there before the event. You look at her winning in the round one of the Goliath Gauntlet and narrowly losing in the second round. You looked at the results from the Battle Hardens and the PTI events into stacked fields. It was, you couldn't argue that she didn't belong there. She just didn't have the qualification in pocket. So this is kind of another vindication for that system doing what it's intended to do, in my mind too.
Yeah.
Let people bet on themselves. I think that's totally reasonable. But again, congratulations to everybody in the Pro Tour. Just in general, there are a lot of just great stories just across the board. One of our good buddy Dagan, he started off dog shit 1-2, and then finished 10-4 in 21st place, his best Pro Tour finish yet, because he won matches on day 2. Like, that's it. So he had his best finish at a Pro Tour ever. Hopefully he keeps it going. Very proud of him. Very proud of, I picked Matt McInnes last week, and he went 8-0 in Classic Constructed with Lexi. So I was right on. He just didn't convert in draft. Still part of it. And so there was a lot of really good performances out there that were incredible. And watching the matches play out was beautiful. I enjoyed every bit of it. And now we have some very interesting things to talk about when it comes to the Living Legend board all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Old man's at 888. That's 56 RTNs. And he gone.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking up.
It's 56 RTNs for Oldham to be gone. It is 18 for Briar. So we may see 2 heroes Living Legend out in RTN season, creating a 5-hero Living Legend format with Starvo, Oldham, Briar, Chain, and Prism all at full power. I want to play this format so fucking bad. This sounds so awesome. This is what I want. I just want degen shit, and this is degen shit if that happens. But it's not a foregone conclusion. On either of those, honestly. Like, Briar did not have a good weekend.
No, I had thought Briar was actually going to do much better than she did this weekend. And
yeah. But 18 wins, like, seems like it should be 18 wins in 400 events. Seems like it should be a foregone conclusion, but I don't know.
I mean, that's less than 5% of the total event,
yeah,
right? So,
but 56 wins for Oldham's kind of does feel like a foregone conclusion.
See, this is the problem I have, right? Because, like, on the one hand, I think that Oldham is incredibly strong, incredibly well positioned, and I can absolutely see a world where Oldham gets those wins, LLs.
Yeah.
However, it's also not necessarily an easy hero to pilot, and so this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, despite him being the second most represented hero at the Pro Tour. So we're talking, arguably the best players in the world competing, and he's the second most represented. Only one made the top 8. And yes, he won it all, but it was also on Michael Feng, right? So there is some potential doubt there, right? And going even a step further, as we all know, the minute that something wins an event, people start teching against it, right? I think that's why people kind of got off of Azalea a bit, made that switch to Lexi. I do think that it had a bit to do with like matchups and so forth as well, but people adapt. And I think about, the very first like real big Flesh and Blood event that everyone thought Chain was going to win. And then, Tyler wins with Prism. And then all of a sudden people have to start teching for Prism. This kind of reminds me of that. And I know that Oldham's not a surprise, but people are gonna have to go back to the drawing board and be like, oh yeah, that's right, that guy's still around, how do I beat it? And yeah, I don't know, like I said, I could absolutely see in a scenario where he gets LL'd, but there's a strong chance where the Rangers start to rack up a bunch. And I also still think that the longer that players get the opportunity to test with Uzuri, I think that she's going to continue to have better and better showings. I know there were a couple of players who did very well with her at the Pro Tour, even though she didn't, convert to the top 8. There were some folks that were doing well, but she has such a huge potential kit and so many different play styles to consider. And there's not honestly been a lot of time to iterate on her. So I think that the more events that we get, we're going to see her slowly start to spike up in the representation. There's also, again, other heroes that, right now we're talking about the Pro Tour, but this is a great time for us to transition. There's also other heroes that I think are well positioned and will steal some wins, like a Dash that won the calling.
Yeah, Merrick Kemp on Dash wins the calling. This top 8 is fucked. Because you have Dash, which, funny to me that Dash played Oldham in the quarterfinals, but the Dash player was Merrick Kemp and the Oldham player was Matt Rogers. Kind of funny. And so then was Matt Rogers on Oldham, Taylor Crawford on Lexi, Randall Sims on Oldham, Zach Bunn doing the only thing he knows how to do, which is play Viscerai. And Azalea was Jacob Kissel, Dave Lynn on Oldham, and everybody's favorite Matt W on Lexi. So we have, again, here we go with three Lexis, right? Or two Lexis, sorry, and 3 Oldhams in the top 8, alongside your Azalea, Dash, Viscerai. And again, it was Merrick Kemp taking down the Oldham, which is kind of expected, Dash. And then getting paired into another Oldham. Okay, great, thanks. And then into Alexi, and then beating the Lexi. So that's very interesting that's how that all shook out, kind of just like almost ready-made for the Dash player through the first 2 rounds at that point in time. But that also pushes Dash over the midway point for Living Legend points. So while that's been a much slower climb than some of these other heroes, Dash has took down some wins.
Yeah.
And that's getting interesting too, where this format, we're going to launch Living Legend with 4 or 5 heroes. By this time next year, it could easily be a 6, 7, maybe even 8 hero format.
Yeah.
And that's real.
Listen, by this time next year, we might be talking about the potential of a world championship. So I don't think it'll be this year, but like next year, our world championship event might feature classic constructed, blitz, limited, likely draft, and living legend.
Yeah,
as part of the rotation, which I think would be baller.
I would have so much fun. Like, I would have such a good time. This is very interesting. Like the amount of things that have happened here, and the fact that Oldham damn near put itself at 988 this weekend also for Living Legend points, if it just would have won the calling too, is absolutely nuts. So I'm very interested in for a lot of reasons in how this leaderboard over the course of RTN ends up shaking out, because we're going to see a seismic shift in this game for a number of different reasons in Classic Constructed. And part of it is going to be saying goodbye to a lot of these, or for at least one and probably 2 of these heroes. So this is going to be very interesting, and I kind of can't wait to see it when we start hitting into some more of these callings and battle hardens later in the year. Speaking of battle harden, we did have a battle harden in Baltimore as well, and while Icelander had Living Legend out, LSS had not got the memo yet, and Icelander was still legal. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Icelanders in the top 8 of this battle, this Blitz battle harden.
This is what we expected. Everyone knew that like her and Oldham they're on their way out, but they were still legal through I think this Friday or whatever. It's like
May whenever the announcement is. Yep.
Yeah, May 4th? First week of May. Yeah, I thought it was like May 4th. First week of May, I know that. So this was like their, swan song, and so naturally the field was everybody getting one last, Icelander / Oldham run in, and it went as expected.
Yep, it goes Icelander, Oldham, Icelander, Prism, Kano. So, and Kano had to play Prism first. Oops.
Yeah.
Then
I believe the Prism was Noah.
It was Noah Clark. Yep.
Yeah, the person from Legends of Runeterra. If you're a listener, he's also known as Darkodius on Twitter. So did very well on Prism. If you're interested in their deck list, I know he put a screenshot of it up on his Twitter.
And then also, interestingly enough, Collins Mullen was one of the players in the top 8 of this battle harden, who comes from a very long lineage of Magic success. Kind of his first showing in Flesh and Blood, but that's another interesting one. It was won by Dylan Dietz, another buddy from the Minnesota area, and playing Icelander, because why wouldn't you? Now, fun fact: everybody that listens to this knows that I love playing Kasai, and I love playing Blitz because of how quick it goes, and my insect brain can keep up with that amount of time versus getting bored during a classic constructed match sometimes. And I did not play in this battle harden, and the reason I didn't play in this battle harden is literally spelled out in this fucking top 8. Because I'm like, I am not going to sit there on Kasai and just play Icelander after Icelander after Icelander and just get my shit pushed in.
And then when you don't run into Icelander, it's like, oh, you get a little bit of Kano for a treat.
Right. I get my respite is getting turned 2'd by Kano. Like, nope, we're just going to not. And so I didn't. Instead, I spent the day networking. I did sit down for some Blitz games and take out some Levia and definitely exercise some frustration on some people. But, there were a 343 player field. There were 70 Icelanders and 27 Oldhams. So, nope. That's a third of the field that I want. Just nope. Not into it. I also love that there are 39 Reinars, and whoever was typing out this hero breakdown got fucking cheeky, and I loved it because it's going through this list, and it goes 2 Katsu riding their tailwinds to victory, 1 Volda Bright Axe is knocking some rowdy heads together, 1 Fi is just vibing. Like, they just ran out of shit to say. Beautiful.
Just vibing.
Yep, just vibing. But if you honestly, like, I know we talked about it before, but go read this live blog from the weekend. It is so good. And hats off to Alex and the team that were working on that all the way through the weekend, because holy fuck, is this fun as shit. It's just so entertaining. They really just knocked it out of the park the entire time. And man, what else they knocked out of the park? Those Judge promo packs. We don't even know what else in them. We just know 3 of the 6 cards. Do you know what one of those cards is?
Yeah, it's a cold foil pummel.
It's a cold foil pummel. Get fucked, nerd.
Yeah. Listen, that was a very successful part of my weekend. I went in with a mission. I wanted to get cold foils of all of my like assassin equipment because I love my assassins, and I wanted to make sure I had at least 1 of each of the codex marbles, right? So like I wanted to like cold foil out my assassin, and I'm happy to report I did it. I got my black text, I got a Mask of Perdition, I got flick knives, cold foiled, and then I did some like trading up so that my plague hive went from rainbow foil to cold foil, and then I also picked up a pair of the vambraces as well because I'm using those a lot with my Uzuri lists. So it was a very fruitful weekend for my assassin hunting.
Yeah, I only had one miss on acquisitions on the weekend, and that was Cold Foil Courage and Blade Hold. I did not.
I
I
didn't
wasn't. I
see
wasn't early
any.
enough. There. So one vendor had two
Oh,
at the
okay. Well,
very
but
beginning of Friday, but they were gone by 8:30.
yeah, I was just about to say, I think that what it was is that you were just there before me because I got in like mid-afternoon or whatever. I was 5 p.m. Friday was like when I walked into the convention center. So, but I didn't see any like all weekend. I kept looking
No,
for
I
you
I
because I
never
knew that
saw
you were
them.
hunting for them, and I just didn't see them.
No, I asked the
And I was
question of a couple of vendors, and they just said, "Yeah, we had them. We had them when they first opened, and they didn't last a half hour." I'm like,
and that's why I was so very excited that I completed my mission because I expected Mask of Perdition to be the difficult one because they are just hard to come by, and I only saw one vendor that had them. I'm sure that many had them like across the weekend. There was a lot of buying and selling. I've never
mm-hmm.
seen so much movement at a fab event. Like they always have a lot of product going in and out, but like this one was wild. But even though I was very routinely like going through all of the different vendor booths, I only ever saw one that had the Mask of Perdition. So I scooped that up because that was what I was worried about.
Yeah, my goals were the cold foil courage, which I didn't find, and then getting back to the 3 rainbow foil CNCs, which I did get to. So those are now back to being foiled out completely. Actually, I never had them foiled out completely. I only ever had 2. So I'm up to. I traded 2 for a fabled CNC. I traded the fabled CNC for effectively 3 rainbow foil CNCs. So it was just turning my 2 CNCs into 3. It was great. And a little bit extra towards something that I gave somebody, I guess. But the Dusk Till Dawn previews started too. I haven't been. I've been excited for the new heroes and stuff that we've seen for the last few sets, but I've never been like hyped like you are for Assassin. But now we have Vincent. She's the new Shadow Runeblade, and this is some shit straight out of Hellraiser.
Looks
Like
pretty cool.
there are blades going through her arms. There are hooks everywhere. It just looks like, Kirsty, I have such sights to show you. Like it just looks fucking demonic awesome.
Could be something out of like Event Horizon or honestly,
Oh
know
yeah,
what it really reminds me of? It reminds me of like something you'd see in a Silent Hill game.
sure.
That was the vibes that I had. But
This pyramid head chilling.
Yeah, like when you said Hellraiser, I was like, yeah, that clicks too. But it did. I was like, oh man, that if that was like crawling at me in a Silent Hill game or whatever, like I wouldn't even blink. It looks like right out of the game. In fact, you said Pyramid Head, but to me it was like kind of reminded me of the nurse. Just instead of like
yep.
carrying the thing, instead it would be like coming out of her arms, but it has like that same vibe because of the eyes,
The cloth
right?
on
Like,
the eyes.
yeah.
Yep. Like
Anyway, just looks really cool.
it just fucking looks awesome.
All of the art that's been spoiled so far, just in general, has been very, very cool for Dusk Till Dawn. I think the Prism looks good. Vincent looks good. We also got the ally. Yep, the Archangel art, like, and the card now showing, which is very interesting. It makes me wonder if perhaps the new Prism is going to be more ally centric, a la Dromai, but instead with angels, or if this is just going to be a one-off thing because we just had another ally, in Dynasty.
It's Soraya. Mm-hmm.
And so like this, is this just like another one of like that, or is this kind of the preview of we're going to get, angels versus dragons illusionist at some point?
That's possible. So a little bit of lore here. This is Belladonna, I believe, Belladonna or Belladonna, and this is Wartune Herald. So when Prism summons her heralds, they are illusions of the archangels, and Wartune Herald is the illusion of this archangel. And the Wartune Herald, this archangel, is associated more with Bolton than Prism, because the Wartune Herald is the archangel of the warriors. So this being a light only card and not just light illusionist is also very interesting, because if some of these can get summoned by warrior as well, that just shifts that deck too into being something potentially a little bit different or having a little bit of different breakdown and setup. So that's interesting too. We don't know yet. We do know that we do get a new young Prism with 16 health, so that's probably fucking busted. And we also get a new adult Prism as well, not the same. The thing we don't get is a new adult Chain.
So yeah, I know you say not the same. I cannot confirm this. This is unconfirmed, but I have seen multiple people on Twitter say that they overheard James in a conversation at the thing say that the adult Prism is that Prism again, and that it's going to be an adult Prism that only has like 30 something health.
Just two different names. They just have different names.
Yeah, like
okay.
Because the young one is what, like Advent of the Throne, so it might be something like you know, now on the throne. I don't know. I'm just like throwing it out.
Advent of Thrones is
Advent of Thrones. Yeah, that's what I'm. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So again, I cannot confirm that. I'm just sharing what I have heard and seen others, heard what people have said and seen what others have posted on Twitter. So keep an eye out for that. But so far, we've only seen the young one for Vincent and Prism. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't a Prism guy the first time around. In fact, as a big Bravo guy, I was like very against her. But if they really stretch the Angel thing, I don't know, I might be able to get behind it. I think it's pretty cool.
Still cops, not doing it.
I mean, there's still cops, but like just from a design standpoint. So one of the things that I really enjoy is that before, with the spectral shields, but all of the other auras and whatever, the fact that like you have to destroy one and then your whole turn is over, that's the part that was like really
Spectra's
polarizing,
horrible.
right?
Yeah.
So with the allies and what they've been doing, where like, yes, it's an ally that has an attack and health, but also by giving them ward, right? So that you have multiple paths to getting rid of it, but you also have the ability to maybe clear multiples, then it makes the Guardian matchup a little less polarized. And I think that that is very helpful in balancing from a design perspective. So just like as an example, if you have Bologna and Soraya out, right, because of the, multiple wards, if you go tall with an attack where you would be popping both wards, then you can clear multiples. And that's just like not something that was easy to do before. So
yeah. But we don't get to, I'm sad because no adult Chain coming back means I don't get to play with Chain specializations.
Which is just the two, right?
Right, but
one of them is really cool.
I'll say one of them's Eclipse.
Yeah, there's Eclipse, and then there's the one that everyone forgets as a card until they see it, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's busted, and that's Soul Reaping. Soul Reaping is such a good card.
Once you understand how the card works and that you only have to banish one card to pay for it, you just suddenly realize that this is fucking stupid.
You only have to. Shit. You can banish more than one and then get resources.
Yeah, you can go like there are levels to understanding that card, but the card is ballistically good, and I don't get to play it again yet, which makes me sad. The separate. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, some speculation I've seen about, if they still want to play into the Shadow Rude Blade thing, and how do you do Blood Debt in a different way? Is some of the interesting ones I've seen suggested that I actually really liked was the idea of instead you make it so that you can either banish a card from the top of your deck or from your hand or something, but not like Soul Shackle where it's happening every turn, but like the idea was like you do the banish once per turn and you can create a rune chant as opposed to maybe doing the go again. Fits the flavor, still lets you access that stuff. If that ends up being true, I actually really like that.
but I like Soul Shackles.
I mean, yeah, everybody did.
Yeah, they're good. But the set breakdown for this is actually kind of fascinating because it's a 236 card set, so it's the biggest supplemental set so far. And obviously the one fable. There are 8 legendaries though. That is very high, and it makes me think that there's legendary allies involved, similar to Soraya. We do know that the Wartune Herald Bella is
Yeah,
a
Alana's a
majestic.
majestic, but has the Marvel version.
Yeah, and there are 56 majestics and 77 rares, so those numbers are very close to each other, and that's also fairly interesting. 94 commons and 10 marvels. The marvels are stunning from the one we've seen so far, and there's rumor that some of them will be stained glass, which itself would be fairly interesting too, like full stained glass.
Yeah, well, I mean, the display boxes, like in the promo
Are stained
materials
glass.
they've already released, are stained glass. So like that tracks, and that would be really cool. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if the Fabled also is potentially stained glass, like a stained glass of the like location or whatever. So think like a stained glass version of Solana, right? Instead of the Great Library, it's like something else or whatever. But I could see them
Solana
doing
that's in
that.
shadows. Let's go.
Yeah.
Or the Demonastery gets a
It is.
location.
So what is interesting to me though is like there is 10 marvels, right? So
10.
That's also a fair amount for a supplemental. But like with Dynasty, we got the whole throne room thing, right? So we had all of the weapons. We know at least one this time around is the Archangel. So it could be, a bunch more angels, or it could be more weapons. I'm very interested to see what the split ends up being on the Marvels, because obviously we're not going to have any sort of like throne room thing to really go heavy on the weapons this time around. But I don't think it's going to be all allies necessarily either.
But it could be, because it could be demonic allies and it should be shadow allies and light allies.
I fully expect at least one shadow ally Marvel for sure. And it could be more than one. But 10, I don't know, 10 just feels it's like just big enough to be interesting, but still small enough where I feel like there's going to be something that slides in, kind of like how we had the super rare Emperor in Dynasty. I feel like we're going to get something similar to that this time around.
We already know we are.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know we're going to get the we're getting
serialized, hand drawn Adult Chain and Adult Prism, the originals, by the artists that did them originally. So Livia Prima and Federico Musetti. So can you fucking imagine opening one of those?
I can't actually. Like I literally, I cannot empathize with what it would feel like to do that.
Like Napkin Math says there's somewhere between 6 and 7 million packs of this set, give or take, that'll be printed, is just my best guess, right? It's somewhere in that vicinity, whatever it is. There are 20 of these. 20 total. And I don't know how I would react. Because normally my go-to when I open something cool is like, whatever. And just kind of throw it on the table regardless of my excitement level. Because it's just always how I've done things. It's like, play it cool, whatever. Act like you've been there before. That's always been like my mindset about everything. But I've never opened anything like that. So I think it would be one of those, just like, stop, register what was happening, stop again, re-register what is happening, and then immediately find the best way to protect it from all elements and harm possible. And then also use it anytime I'm playing one of those two heroes, because I probably wouldn't sell it. Like, I can't even imagine how cool those things have to look.
Yeah.
And it's odd because we may go a very long time without seeing one. It is distinctly possible.
Oh, it's Here's the other thing, right? So I want to throw another variable into the mix, because you talk about like how would you respond, right? One is like, how do you respond if you buy a couple of cases or whatever when the set launches, and then you take it home and you're opening it at home, right? Like my response there is probably panic, right? Like, I'm gonna be honest, like panic, because I would probably immediately put it down and then like go wash my hands and dry them thoroughly, and then like come back and very careful. You know what I mean? Like I would have that moment. However, my panic skyrockets if instead of I'm just opening it because I opened some cases at home. I'm opening it at an event. Like imagine opening it in the convention center, right?
I know that feeling though, because of I was there when the cold foil heart was opened, and that's similar to me.
Yeah, I just can't like imagine how panicked I would be, because like I would want to shout about it, but I would also, there's a part of me to be like, don't tell anyone till this thing is protected or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then like, yeah, I don't know. So I just, the good news is I just know that I don't have to worry about this. This isn't even like, oh, a lot of times when, stuff starts to give me anxiety, I go, you know what, that's a future me problem. And then I just forget it. But like, this isn't even a future me problem.
No, it's not even a problem at all.
This is a never me problem. This is just not something that I will experience. So but
somebody in our Discord, I think it was Aladoris, had a good approach, which was, I don't know to think about this. And the approach was don't. Yeah. They don't exist. Just act like they don't exist. They are not a you problem.
Here, it's not a me problem, but I can't act like they don't exist, because I'm just going to tell you right now, one of them will be opened by Andy Stonk's Elemental.
Money fake.
Just throwing that out there.
It is. Yes, it is distinctly possible that Money Fake will just open one and then be like, money fake, and then throw it on a table and not even pay any attention to it. That is distinctly possible.
Yep.
But that means there's 19 more. So you still have a shot, right?
No,
absolutely not. You don't. And these are, whoever opens these, it is 100% a massive boon, because these are going to be incredibly valuable and people are going to pay for them. Just straight up. Because each one, they're serialized, but because they're hand drawn, technically each one is a 1 of 1. And okay, that's where the money's at. Have fun with that. But I do know if I open one, it will immediately go to like back it for grading, and we will just then use that to play as the hero whenever I play either of those. Knowing my luck, I'll open a prism though, which I'll never play a cop. So the best thing I can do is keep a cop in jail. So I, get it slabbed and then put it on a shelf somewhere. Then but I mean, the other part that I thought was cool is, so back to LSS praise for a moment, because they deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the pieces of feedback that were leveled at them, or 2 pieces really. I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way. The pre-release event for Dusk Till Dawn is a thing.
Yep.
And those are happening July 7th through 9th, and they're Monarch draft with prizing from Dusk Till Dawn. And the cool part of this is one of the issues levied about this last pre-release season was that stores couldn't order product to give to their players for prizing from outsiders. And so immediately in the next set, it's like stores can order as much product of this as they want to have for prizing in their pre-release. Yeah. Immediate response. And the other part was that people were like, hey, why did you stop doing buy a box promos? We really liked those. We have buy a box promos again.
Yep.
So one of the things that LSS does extremely well is listen to their player base and listen to the collector base and listen to the people who care about the game, and then make changes when it makes sense. It makes sense to have pricing available for the set you're hyping in the pre-release events. It just fucking does. So they're like, yep, makes sense. Are we gonna have a supply chain issue if we try it? No? Okay, let's do it. Like, that's it. They just did it. Same thing with buy a box promos. I've learned through working with Alpha Clash and such that the cost to make those promos is not super high. It's just a matter of deciding what you want and getting it printed in time. So now buy a box promos are back. That's awesome. Like, that's what people want. Do it.
It's very refreshing to have a company listen to what players want and try to give that to them instead of trying to figure out what their players want and milking it from them. Or
telling their players what they want.
Well, there's that too, but
that's my favorite example of this is Magic oriented, because everything virtually is when you're talking about somebody shitting the bed. And in this case, the way they fucked the dog was when they started doing set boosters and draft boosters. So draft boosters, for those who don't know, are literally your 15 card packs that you would draft with, same as Flesh and Blood, right? Like, there's only draft boosters in Flesh and Blood is the best way to think of it, unless it's a supplemental set. Then they started printing these things called set boosters, which are not draftable because they're supposedly seeded to encourage building one of the archetypes that's present in the set mechanics or whatever. And so they what WotC did is they sent people, draft boosters and set boosters, and then stores were like, hey, I need more draft boxes. And they're like, oh, we don't have any draft boxes, so we can send you set boosters. And it's like, well, I can't draft those.
Help. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, we don't have any draft boxes to give you. It's like, okay, fine.
This is like when somebody says, I want a Coke, and they're like, well, we have Pepsi. And you're like, well, then fuck you.
No, thank you. Yeah. Still okay. And so what happened was, and I know this from a store that had this issue when they contacted WotC, was like a set later or whatever, like, hey, I need to up my draft booster allotment because I'm not getting enough. And they're like, well, I mean, you can get plenty of set boosters. And he's just like, well, no, I need draft boosters. And they're like, well, our data shows that set boosters sell better than draft boosters. Is that because you sent me 3 times the number of set boosters as draft boosters and I ran out of draft boosters, so the only thing people could buy was set boosters? Welcome to WotC. And so this is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
This is exact opposite. And I do love that they're making it Monarch Draft, and the specific thing they called out was due to the pandemic, a lot of places did not get to experience Monarch Draft. Or didn't, it was by the time that they got in on Flesh and Blood, it was into Tails, so they were doing Tails drafts, and Tails was relevant for competitive, and Monarch competitive drafting was never really a widespread thing. So I think that that's very cool for them to do that too. Obviously, there's a ton of Monarch out there. It's not very hard to get. I mean, every single store that I know is like, yeah, I can order as much Monarch as I want, and there's no limit. If I tell them a number, money fake, I can just tell them a number and they'll just give it to me. So, so that's good, and it's a good way to get that product flowing again, which it was going to anyway, because we're going into a set with Light and Shadow, and the cards from Monarch are going to be relevant again.
Yep.
Which is also very, very important to a lot of different things. The prize kits for this are insanely cool, because there's extended art, Herald of Ravages, foil Heralds of Ravages, and then they have this broken down, so the winner of each pod and stores will receive 4 pods worth of product, so 32. So basically a case, right? The winner of Monarch, I make sure I'm specifying. The winner of each pod gets either a cold foil Prism, Advent, or Thrones, or cold foil Vincent, so young Vincent, which is awesome. And I do love that they point out, very awesome. If a store runs less than 4 pods, the additional cold foil hero cards must be given away as a door prize. And then they make sure to spell out, which is something that's been, they've always kind of acknowledged that this is the way it's supposed to be, but never actually had it as a policy. But they added as policy as to someone who has not already received a cold foil prize card. So you can't win a pod and win a random.
Yeah. I mean, my LGSs always do it that way anyway. And like you said, it's been heavily suggested, but it is cool to see them very specifically say no double up.
Right. Yep. And I think that that's the way it should be. It makes sense. So that's, I do know I'm going to need a Vincent playmat though. And whatever other gnarly fucking Hellraiser Silent Hill art ends up in this set.
I have bad news for you.
It has zones? It doesn't have zones?
It's not going to have zones.
God damn it.
Because it's a character one. So
why do you have to hate me? Why do you dislike me? What did I ever do to you?
Because the entire theme of Vincent is pain, and I'm preparing you.
Okay. I accept, I guess. I don't know what to say. Let's do some listener questions. That sounds like fun.
I have a listener question for you.
Oh, let's go.
As you prepare for Vincent, are you planning on increasing the amount of times you go to acupuncture?
I mean, yes, sure. Give me all of it.
I know.
I mean,
that was the answer.
That's actually my dream
from this weekend.
Yeah, that's my dream. Put needles in my skin. Like, great. What else? Can sign me up. I don't really care why you're putting needles in my skin. Just do it.
That's right.
That'd be fantastic. I would, sign, all the way. There's not a good acupuncture place here, which is depressing and disappointing.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, you're in Iowa, so
yeah, I'm not in civilization for the most part. It is what it is. So let's kind of crank out these couple of listener questions here from George. Met George this weekend. Great, great human. I think I had chased down Charmer with him. So the George asked, was seeing a cold foil pummel in the Judge promo pack. What other commonly played card would you like to see get this treatment, Darick?
Well, for those who don't know, the one that's been revealed anyway is the Judge really awesome cold foil red pummel. So clearly my answer is yellow and blue pummel.
Okay, how about non-pummel?
Oh, non-pummel. All right, so I'm going to try to pick a generic here.
Makes sense.
Just to avoid the bias, because naturally then I want to say something like Crippling Crush or Spinal Crush or whatever. But if we're going with a generic, I think it would be really cool to see a cold foil Sink Below. Yeah,
that was the first one that came. Well, sorry, the second one that came to mind. The first one that came to mind for me was Razor Reflex, because it's the inverse of pummel, right?
Right.
It would make sense. But it's not super widely played. Pummel is more played than Razor, I believe.
Really fucking cool though if you would cold foil that blade.
Yeah, we doing it. That would be fantastic, and it would look awesome. So that's the first one that came to my mind. The second one was Sink Below, mainly because there isn't a real promo Sink Below. There are promo Fate for Scenes and promo Sigil of Solaces. But I don't think that there are promo Sink Belows at all yet that I can think of.
No, I mean, the closest thing to the Chase, Sink Belows are the Alpha Foil, the pink sinks.
Yep. The other ones were Snatch and Cold Foil Ravenous Rabble Red. Because the foiling on Ravenous Rabble, the rainbow foiling, is god awful, and this would be an opportunity to fix it.
Yeah, I could see that.
But those were the other ones that came to mind. I think that Red Fate, Red Sync, or not Red Fate, but Red Sync makes a ton of sense. Razor, Snatch would look okay as a cold foil, wouldn't look amazing. The Razor would look so good. It's painfully good, is what Razor Reflex would look like. So that's way up there. Unmovable would be another interesting one to see get that treatment. But those are the types of things that I think would be cards I want to see get this treatment. The other listener question was from Farsis, which is, what other cards are going to kill Charmander's wallet?
You know, you and I kind of inadvertently talked about this question, even though it wasn't specifically this question, but you and I had talked about it this weekend a bit. For those of you who don't know, Logan is like one of the kindest people on the planet.
This is not true.
And he tracked down my chase card for me this weekend.
I did do that.
He found a Spanish Marvel Bravo and then gifted it to me and almost made me cry in public, so I hate him. So when we were discussing that, what I basically said was that was like my grail, with the one exception being that because I solely, truly, ultimately, absolutely believe it will happen. So this is a when, not if, they print the foreign language Marvel version of Uzuri. And because by the time that time, that rolls around, and with Japan entering the market, it will likely be available in Japanese. So the answer to the question is the Japanese Marvel full art Uzuri. That's the next one that will ultimately be the chase.
Yep, that's going to gut your wallet, because you're not going to be the only one chasing that.
No, that one is not going to be. Let's just say that one's not going to be like Bravo attainable. That one's going to be.
That Bravo was barely fucking attainable.
Well, right. But I just mean it, like, when we're talking about like the price difference, like, don't get me wrong, Bravo, there's a lot of Bravo stands, and I shout out to Clark again. I love you, Clark, my Bravo buddy. There's a lot of Bravo stands, but Uzuri is she's a really cool hero, and there's a lot of people that I've already talked to, even just this weekend, who are like, hey, I just wanted to play her because she's so neat and I'm having a lot of fun, even if I don't know how to build her. Again, that was a very common theme when I was talking to other players. Like, I just don't know like how to explore her yet, or what to do. So that'll get cracked at some point. But even beyond all of that, she just is. She's aesthetically very, very cool. Her full art, like, because it's got the people in the background or whatever, it's going to look so good when it eventually is put into a Marvel card art. Yeah, it will be a very expensive get, and like I said, I know that it will be a thing. Like, I, beyond a shadow of a doubt at this point, like I firmly believe that there will be one, and I will be on the hunt. So
that is something that is going to exist, and it will be a non-zero, and by non-zero I mean adding a lot of zeros amount of money to obtain one of those. It's just the story for the crew a little bit here. So I was the Realm, shout out to the Bartrams, had obtained a German Bravo, and so I said, hey, get that out of there. I don't want Charmer to see it like, oh, you already saw it, he was looking at buying it. I'm like, okay, take it out of the case, put it aside, tell him it's sold if he comes back. And so they did. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going to get this for him, because I have been hunting for fucking months for a Spanish one, and never saw one in the open market. Not once. I mean, Facebook marketplaces, events, every time, like reaching out directly to, your Hemmels of the world and your, and Minmax of the world. Nope. And they were on the lookout for me, and nothing ever came about it. So I'm like, I'm just going to buy this German one, and we're going to call it good. As I'm completing the purchase, or getting ready to complete the purchase, or the trade-in with Keith for the German one, a gentleman comes up with a binary. He's like, are you buying Marvel Heroes? And Keith's like, yeah, of course. He opens his binder. He's like, I have these. And I look, and there's a Spanish Bravo sitting in his fucking binder. And I'm like, that. Keith, I need that. He's like, okay, how much? And the guy's like, names his numbers. And Keith's like, sure, I'll just buy them all. And just the German one went back and the Spanish one became part of the deal instead. It is the only one I've seen.
Yeah, and I mean, Logan is not the only one who's been hunting, because ever since Clark was like, hey, I finally found mine on a Facebook group or whatever, I've been hunting too. And I was starting to think that I hallucinated that they printed it in Spanish, because
like a Mandela
I remembered
effect.
it. Yeah, but then I was like, maybe I didn't, maybe I imagined it, because I just couldn't find them. I had seen a healthy number of German ones, and I'd seen a couple of Italian ones listed. And I know that Jordan had messaged me once about one that was something else. And then Logan, you said that you had seen
French.
You'd seen French, right? Because of the Canadian thing. But yeah, I could not find Spanish. And so it was
well,
wild.
You started doing this show with me in January. And that was 4 months ago. And 4 months ago is when I found out that you wanted the Spanish Marvel Bravo. And I was like, okay, I'll find one. And it'll be a thank you for coming, on this stupid fucking journey with me. And it took me 4 goddamn months to find the fucking thing. Just like, fuck me. What the fuck? And I was just happy to finally find it and get it. And again, shout out to the Bartrams for being awesome to us. The realm is always just so insanely good to us. Hashtag no free ads. But they definitely they deserve the props here.
Hey, no free ads, but before we end this, because I know we're at the end of the listener questions, let me just throw the teaser out of Pittsburgh is coming up in a month. So the Realm, Green Tree, they're gonna have a battle hardened, and we're gonna have a good time. Speakeasy thing will be back. We're gonna have promos now.
Promos. I have promos.
Just in case you were wondering, like, we had talked a little bit about or joked a little bit about doing something to give those away. I don't know what yet, but there will be some of those at the battle hardened, just in case you were wondering. So
so the one, congratulations to Greg, aka Darth Prentice, for winning the Speakeasy ticket. So Greg, if you're listening, congratulations, sir. You were the winner in the wheel spin earlier. There was only I think there was only like 12 names. So, 1 in 12 shot was pretty good. The one person had pulled out because I was like, oh, lucky number 13, let's go. And then somebody unfortunately couldn't go. And, but you haven't seen anything until you see John from Green Tree and Keith from the Realm try to out degen each other. Yeah. It is fascinating to watch these two humans try to just out what the fuck each other. So look for wild shit in Pittsburgh. Door prizes that don't make sense to give away. That's a thing that John does a lot.
I know that this isn't something that's going to happen at this event, but just to give you the kind of idea of the things that I've heard tossed around over the weekend in Baltimore, I heard one of the Bartrams say, hey, let's get this box of Alpha Welcome to Wrath signed by James White, and then we're gonna draft it.
Yeah, Keith said that to me. He went because he bought a 3 first ed boxes, one crew, 1 arc, 1 Welcome to Wrath. He's like, yeah, I want to go, and I haven't found time yet, but I want to go and get him signed by James. I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool. He's like, yeah, and then we'll fucking draft him. And I'm like, the fuck's the point then? Why are you getting him signed?
to say that you drafted some first edition that was signed by James White, of course.
Yeah, of
Because
course. It just makes
it's
total
all about,
sense.
because with him, it's always about the experience, right? He just wants
Yeah. Oh,
people
yeah.
to have a good time, genuinely. And so the more that you can give somebody a memorable story, something ridiculous like that, the more he just likes doing that for other people. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I know that,
You're right.
when you think about the whole like logic and reason thing, you're like, why would you have somebody sign something if you're just going to open it and draft it? But that's not the point. The point is always the experience with him. He just wants people to have a good time, and that is how you do it.
Yeah. So when the first the Brawl Speakeasy that was the first like kind of open entry one, not the original fucked up event that preceded the that speakeasy party. At that one, we were flipping and ripping Crucible, first ed,
Mm-hmm.
and a cold foil sledge of Ambelheim was torn in half. The person that tore that in half and has kept it in a snap case and uses that sledge for their Oldham deck.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you?
And
It's
they
a hell
love
of a
it.
story. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely love
literally
it.
every time, because that person plays some events in Michigan, and so when I bumped back into him again, he was beaming, like his face lights up when he talks about his sledge that's ripped in half, even though it's a cold foil first ed or
Signed by
whatever.
a ton of people, like
The
my signature's on it.
the story and the experience is worth more to him than the card was, right? Like
Right.
again, it's just that you can't take that away. So
No, and it's wonderful. I absolutely love those things. Like, and the fact that John and Keith and Jacob are all of the same mind of giving those experiences to people is going to make for a truly spectacular event. And it's going to be so player friendly, so player centric that you're going to feel like every single person in that room is going to feel like a VIP. That's just all there is to it. That's the kind of experience that all of those people want to provide to the people in the room. So if you can make it to Pittsburgh, hashtag no free ads, make it to Pittsburgh. It's going to be an unreal amount of fun. And I really hope to see everyone there. Hey, Charmer.
Hmm.
I have the Patreons pulled up this time. I don't have to filibuster. I can just go straight to the fucking tab, baby. They are already up.
I was ready to do it on your behalf. I was going to talk about the formats of the event at Pittsburgh while you looked it up and everything. Like,
actually, what are the formats at Pittsburgh? But I do have it pulled up because so to prove it's pulled up, I'm going to do the shout outs and then we're going to talk about the formats in Pittsburgh. Okay, so the shout outs are our associate producers are Andy, Kenny, and May. Executive producers on up, C-Dubs, Nick D, Josh, Matt two T's. He is a new patron. Welcome to the family. Popo Mike, Rich, Ed, Philip, Taylor, and Trevor. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. There are how many ever fucking tiers there are. Link is in the show notes. Go, Charmer, I did it.
Sure. So for those who are not familiar, and the reason I wanted to talk about the formats is this weekend is absolutely going to have a battle hardened this weekend in May. But there's also the Brawl as part of the Realm circuit as well. So there are multiple like important things going on. So on Saturday for the Pittsburgh Brawl, so this is part of that Realm circuit that's going to have the big money invite at the end of the year, invite tournament that has $2,000 for first place, along with a PTI this time around, as well as like that Realm invite. The top 4 get Realm invites to that big event at the end of the year, and then also a random drop cold foil legendary. And I also have it on good authority that Mara has some really cool new tokens that'll be showing up at that event as well. So there's just like a ton of stuff for the Brawl, and that's on Saturday, and that's Classic Constructed. And that's not even the only thing on Saturday. There's also a Super Armory on Saturday as well. And then on Sunday is the Battle Hardened, which also, because it's Battle Hardened, has, cash prizes It's not as much as the Brawl event, so the Brawl has more cash up for grabs. The Battle Hardened is, I think it's like $500, but I do know that, again, the important thing is there are PTIs available for that event as well, and also the random cold gold foil legendary, right? So
And the
this,
playmats and the brawl and the battle hardened
yeah,
playmats.
and the Battle Hardened playmats, which is also a potentially big thing. But I wanted to mention that because it's not just a battle hardened. On the weekend, you have 2 different events that you can earn PTIs at potentially. You have 2 different events where you can earn, gold, cold foil legendaries, and lots of cash prizes. And that's not even counting side events that will be running all weekend and the speakeasy and all of those other shenanigans, right? So like it's a battle hardened, but again, this is more than that because it's also the brawl and all of the other stuff. Like I'm really excited for this weekend. At the end of May, it's Memorial Day weekend in Pittsburgh.
What format is the battle hardened?
So the battle hardened is sealed, which is also
that's
amazing.
right. It's outsider sealed.
Yeah. So I'm very envious. So I'm going to be doing the broadcasting, the commentary, myself, Flake, other notable people from the community. We're going to be doing the coverage, and I'm very, very envious of the people who get to play because that sealed, I love limited, is something that I would love to participate in. But instead, I'll be talking about it, and that's fine too. I mean, I love you all, but man, sealed battle hardened, that's where it's at for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's yes. Sealed outsiders is a little awkward, but it is in my mind still super fun. Like I really do enjoy sealed, mainly because it gets interesting to see what people can make out of what like random things they kind of get. Like some things build themselves, but if you're not fortunate enough to have a build itself pool, there's a lot of room in this format to do some things as long as you're not stuck behind only being able to play 30 cards. That sucks in this format. That's very awful. But I think that it'll be a good time, and everybody should, I would encourage everybody to show up. We're gonna do some quick end of show shit here. Like you can if you have any questions or concerns, you can email us at fleshandpod@gmail.com, or you can contact us on Twitter @fleshpod. Those links are in the show notes. Any complaints will go straight to Flesh and Pod Legal, a subsidiary of Black Hole Legal, which is still the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk. You can also like and subscribe to us on YouTube. We still have an embarrassing low number of YouTube subscribers, and any little bit helps. But whoever this person is that keeps disliking the videos, man, that's just a dick move. Unless you really do dislike it, and then tell me why. It'd be helpful. Maybe my production values are shit, which is probably just true. I don't know what I'm doing. Darick, where can they find you?
They can find me on YouTube, disliking our videos to keep us
you
humble.
Motherfucker.
No, they can also find me at That Charmer on Twitter. That's the social media that I use the most. On YouTube and on Twitch, I'm just Charmer. Every time you hear me say Charmer, keep in mind it's Charm 3R, because at some point in my life I was an edgy e-gamer who had to have a number. Actually, it was just because charmer.com was already registered and I was trying to lock down a domain, so that's the real reason why. But anyway, I'm Charmer most places, and if you can't find me, then I'm That Charmer. And if you can't find me that way, you just search by my real name, but you'll have to remember how to spell it. That's on you.
The Tanning Grace.
No, it's Darick, but it's Darick, because
your parents hated you. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the the places you can find me. You can also find me on Discord, right? So join the Flesh and Pod Discord. It's in the show notes, and ping me there as well.
Yeah. And if you need to find me personally, I'm on everywhere. It's just my name. It's just Logan Peterson, all one word, literally everywhere. I am the easiest person to find. In a room full of people, I'm the loudest. Anywhere online, it's just my name. The reason being is I know I need to be held accountable for the stupid out-of-pocket shit I say. And the best way to do that is to put my real name behind it. That way, if I'm being a fucking moron, which does happen frequently, I can be held to task and learn from the experience. Hooray! That's literally honestly, that is why I do it, because not having a inner monologue makes it so you just say shit sometimes. Oops. So that helps me learn to not do those things. But you can easily find me that way in the Discord, on Twitter, on any social media, on LinkedIn. I mean, if you really want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure that's just that too. So very, very simple to find me wherever. And then also at any event, I am the idiot with a big gray beard, long hair, and almost always wearing green. So, and then standing next to Charmer, because for some reason, as soon as we're somewhere together, we just gravitate. And then because I'm fat, I just pull in people like a black hole. It's just 9.8 meters per second squared, sucking people into me. You see, this is why I have my name
Yeah,
as my
yeah.
social media,
This
because
is
that was
why.
not good. That was terrible.
No, that
Nope.
was bad.
Nope.
No,
Let's not do that ever again.
no, thank you.
Special thanks to everybody on the weekend who made the weekend special. Again, just name a couple people: the gay icon Mara Ferris, the most famous person I know, the author of The Stoic, stand-up comedian Matt DeMarco, aka
We
Flake.
barely mentioned him. Like, I know we mentioned him, but like we didn't rag on him at all. I feel like this is a weird week.
Yeah, that it is. It is a weird week. The man who is most due, which is Mikey Torque, aka Nick Bolus, aka No Control,
Yeah,
aka
we're due.
Buttcock, aka Neon Shorts douchebag. There's a lot of AKAs for Mikey,
Yeah.
isn't there? AKA Flexi Lexi, Tommy Fresh, Tommy Dong. Always a joy. Thanks to Arafel and Syndra and Carolina and Maddie McInnes and that entire crew of all those people, just made a great weekend for it. And again,
And
special thanks to LSS for bringing it all
Jotrick. I
together.
got to meet Jotrick. He
Yeah,
came all the way over.
I
Yeah.
didn't. I did
Oh,
not
wow.
get a chance to meet Jotrick. I was so fucking pissed.
Well, he flagged me down because of my arm. Like, so
Oh, sure.
he saw me that way and he was like, "Oh, hey, Charmer." And so
yeah, Alex, Josh, Scott, again, thank you LSS for putting it all together. It was phenomenal. That's the best event they put together so far by and large. I don't have any notes of things that were bad. And I don't have automatic ideas to improve the experience.
I only have one.
What was the one?
Put me on the broadcast.
Okay, there's that too. But God damn it. Why is it always about you?
Because I'm Carolina to Electric Boogaloo.
She doesn't listen. We can just talk shit all we want to. But LSS, you did a great job. Again, the fun part is we know from sources that this event was incredible. The four sources for that are us. We were there. But from what we heard about it from OP is this is not even close to the show they want to put together for Worlds. And I am ready to be stunned at Worlds then, because this was as good an experience as I could possibly imagine for a game that really is still in its infancy of putting these events on. And yes, James White did say sometimes you got to put an event in a tent in order for people to appreciate when it's not, which was tongue in cheek. He obviously did not mean that, but it's true though. Like they just heard the feedback of this was shitty. They knew it was shitty, but they took the feedback to heart and created an event that was spectacular. So hats off to LSS for pulling it off. Hats off to all the competitors that were there, and then all the community members who just make this always memorable for us. Thank you very much. And a special thank you to my podcast partner, Darick, for gutting it out, for showing up and having a good time in spite of the fact that he was at a pain level 9.5 the entire time.
But it was worth it.
It was worth it. Anything else, buddy?
I miss you already. Can't wait for Pittsburgh.
Miss you too. We're only a few weeks away. So we'll see you then. We'll see everybody then. And then, Darick, I'll talk to you next week. But until then, bye.